you ready? The time has come. Let the show begin.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Fitz!
What's up, buddy?
How are you, sir?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. Real good. I always share a post about doing these, and I always probably say the same thing. Oh, I'm super excited, but I really am for you because you've never been on. And honestly, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but you know, I've known you for a while now. You've always stayed low and under the radar, and kind of you just execute, man. But you know, now obviously with some of the things we're going to talk about today, you're coming out of the shadows a little bit, if that's okay to say. So,
Sure.
obviously, there's a bunch of people that are in the group that I know for a fact know you, but there's probably a few that also don't. So I just want to give you the floor right up front, and you know, again, fire away anything you want to tell us about yourself, or you know, maybe your thoughts on the World Baseball Classic, which I'd rather not discuss, but you and I are aligned probably there. So, but the floor is yours, man.
Sure. Yeah, we'll probably not bore half the group, I'm sure, with our opinions on the World Baseball Classic, but it was didn't end the way I was hoping. There's no doubt about that. But
for sure.
You know, probably what most people are at least curious about is you know, who the hell am I and why the hell am I on your show? I'm, I guess, going on almost 20 years now in the industry. When I first started way back when, and that explains some of the gray hairs in the beard at this point. So I started carrying a bag in the house all those years ago. Worked for an organization many are familiar with Power Home Remodeling, and I've had the opportunity to work as a sales rep and training manager and sales manager, and VP of sales and marketing for an organization as well too in the Richmond, Virginia market, and now do some consulting work for organizations across the country, helping them develop, you know, sales and leadership programs and marketing programs, and get systems and processes in place. So I've had a lot of fun doing that stuff. I love the industry. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm doing right now currently my least favorite thing, like you said. I hate talking about myself, so I'd rather get out and do some work with some people.
Heck yeah, for sure. So something, you know, again, it's just a hot topic, so we'll just dive right in on it if you're good with it. And I was on yesterday live. We were on with Dustin Rhodes, who I'm pretty sure you know well, out there on that far left coast. But you know, this hot topic of the one call close, and some that will be watching this will be like, oh man, here we go again. But I think it's important just to get a couple different views on it, and something you and I've talked about a little bit off the air here. So I just want to dive right in and kind of attack that. And obviously, hopefully, I'm sure there's going to be another view to it that could maybe connect with someone and connect some dots for them. So
yeah.
Is
you
it
know,
dead?
No, you know, I mean, we can make it real short if you want. It's absolutely not, in my personal, very humble opinion. You know, I think it's definitely a growing conversation. I mean, you and I were talking about it earlier. There's a lot of people out there that you know, have shied away from it, and or are starting to, you know, turn away from it. And I can appreciate the sentiment, right? So I can appreciate the idea that if done the wrong way, it can come off like the, you know, plaid jacket, sleazy used car sales, you know, kind of tactic. And shoot, you and I have been on ride-alongs where we probably have, you know, had the hair on the back of our neck stand up and be like, oh God, that was terrible, right? And seeing the homeowner's reaction to it. And if it's not done the right way, then yeah, absolutely. It's awful, and it is pressure, and it is that sleazy experience. But you know, I think there's a couple of things that you know, we talked with a good friend of ours not too long ago, Bob Camiri out there in Indiana. You know, the old school stuff that we were all taught when we first got into this world. You know, the real hard tie downs and you know, closing and slamming the door shut. You know, and that kind of stuff. I think the consumer's gotten a lot more educated, got a lot more access to information, and that stuff I think that they're wise to, right? So I think being a little bit more transparent, a little bit more clear, and setting up the idea that I am here to ask for your business early. One of the things I'll say on a regular basis is that I'm unapologetically a salesperson, right? And we've come up with a lot of creative ways to try to disguise the fact that our people are salespeople, right? We call them design consultants, or you and I were both in the bath world. We called them bath experts, right? Kind of thing. They know we're a salesperson. They know what we're here for. So just be honest and tell them, like, I'm going to answer a lot of questions for you and provide a good service. And if at the end of this you like everything, I'm going to ask you for your business. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I shared a story not too long ago that my dad was an in-home salesperson, put food on the table for us, and it was a noble position. And I'm very grateful for what he did and how he provided for us. He took me on my first sales call when I was 12 years old. The hell of a sales pitch. Like, look at the size of this kid. He's got to eat something. Please buy for me. And
I didn't know that. I mean, back to your dad. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
Probably should ask that of people. How the heck did you get into this business? That's wild.
Yeah, it was. I'll never forget. People had parrots. They had 2 parrots, and that was like our warm up. Was hanging out with the people and asking about the parrots. But my dad made me do part of the pitch. He sold Rawlings security systems, and it was quite the experience. So yeah, I learned how to look adults in the eye and ask for a deal at 12 years old, right? And we sold it. I sold that job, which was cool. Like I said, probably hard to tell a 12-year-old kid no, but it was a good experience and cool to go see. And I probably at 12 would have told you there was no way I was going into sales, but here I am. But anyway, I mean, like I said, I think that it's the natural conclusion, and we've heard that a million times, to a good presentation, right? And I think with people's access to information and the lack of time that we all have, they don't want to see multiple people. Like, they're more educated, and the opportunity is there to ask for their business. If they're not buying from you tonight, they're buying from somebody else tomorrow.
Something I want to bring up, you mentioned, and again, this is why you have to have different views. Everybody, somebody asked me one time, what's your favorite step, if you will? And I was like, for me, I always say kind of the engaging, connecting with the customer, entry, warm up, whatever you want to call it. But if you ask 10 different people that question, they're going to tell you 10 different things, and it doesn't matter. No one's necessarily right or wrong because they believe in what they believe. So little difference of opinion. I know that was a long roundabout way to get to the thing I'm bringing up, but you mentioned bringing up price, or I'm sorry, bringing up the, kind of a form of a pre-close, early, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I think this was just posted actually in the group about it. And there was a lot of different responses, including my own. But, my concern is around the bias that it triggers, right? Because it says to me, and the science says anything you say on, after this point technically could be perceived as bias.
Yeah.
But I think it depends on how you ask. So I guess that's kind of the question. When you do it, it's after kind of what you're setting an agenda. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So, I mean, all right, we'll kind of take it back to how I think we were originally trained, right? And the original, process that we all got into the home with, and some we still do, right? We're going to guarantee a price for a year. There's no pressure. Don't worry about it. It's a free estimate, right? And then we go through this whole process and we get the head bobber. We love it. You're a great guy. No pressure. Relax. It's no big deal. Oh, you do like it. 30% off your price. That's pressure. Okay.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of get the hell out of my house, kind of experiences at that point, right?
For sure.
Well, if we flip the table, we kind of think about it. We haven't asked them or allowed them to digest a decision at all, right? Or put them in a position to digest that decision at all. We haven't given them any time. We've given them 5 minutes of time, 3 minutes of time, 30 seconds of time to digest it. All we've done is shown them this great thing and not asked them to consider, do you think you want this, right? In fact, we've encouraged them not to do that at all. So my philosophy on it is, in the first couple of minutes, when I get into the house. Again, I've gotten out of the car. They peeked behind the curtain, seen me get out of the car, slammed that curtain shut, looked at each other and said, all right, sales guys here, remember, we're not buying shit today, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're not doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
They're, they know who we are. So when I get in there, did they tell you what we were doing today? Yeah, great. So we're going to do all that, do an inspection, make sure we can, take care of you. And then we'll give you that price that's good for a year and show you any promotions you're available for. And if you like everything, right, we do have an option to move forward today. It's totally up to you, though. Okay. And look, I would tell you 5 out of 10 times, hey, Matt, we're not doing anything today, just so you know. No problem. All I'm doing is introducing the idea that there is an option for the homeowner, right? And introducing the conversation, getting it started, right? I can't make you do anything you don't want to do, right? Joe, if we had that ability, you and I would have wrote a book a long time ago. We'd be living on an island right now. Like, if we could trick somebody into something, like, great.
For sure.
Sales would be real easy. But I feel like we owe you that courtesy to, like, let you know that there is an opportunity to take advantage of it. And if you're seeing things you like, then you should have the opportunity to consider it through the entire process, right? So some people I've worked with take it and it works really well for them right at the beginning like that. Some people do it kind of early in that needs assessment where they feel it's just a little more natural for them, like in that first third of the appointment, so to speak. But in either case, like, my thought is the earlier the better, because I get a chance to talk about it early and often.
What about, you think that, here's a good one. What about like a nebulous lead, like a canvas, where you don't even, well, first off, they don't even, like, they're not even anticipating it for sure, because again, we probably just met them maybe earlier that day, depending on how same days work within your business, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's maybe a little bit, could I possibly wait till after I'm done my inspection and say, hey, look, it's something we can help you with, obviously get a commitment that, something needs to be done, and then say, hey,
yeah. So when I was at Power, those were the only leads we ran, right?
Oh,
and yeah. And, here's what I'll say about that, right? Like, and we had, at JBR, we ran Costco leads, and guys would go, well, they weren't even thinking about it. They were there for, 2,000 rolls of toilet paper, right? And that was pushback we got from salespeople on those leads. The reality is nobody's bringing you into the house because they weren't thinking about buying whatever it is that they're entertaining your appointment for, right? So there is some interest in doing something with whatever it is you're there for. Even if it was the 18-year-old kid knocked on the door and convinced them to take the appointment. So the example I gave my guys when we were having those conversations was the kiosk in the mall, right? The kiosk stand in the middle of the mall where somebody's selling perfume or the cutting boards or whatever those things are. We walk past those a million times without stopping because we have no interest in buying it. The only time you ever stop is if you have some level of interest. So if they've opened the door and they've let you in, there is a level of interest. It might be 1%, it might be 50%. There's a range for sure. So my only pushback on that is they're not taking the appointment if they hadn't at some point been considering doing whatever the project is. I'm a big believer in that every one of the homeowners that we meet with has a similar, maybe negative quality in common. I'm guilty of it too as a homeowner. I'm a procrastinator. Today was not the first day I started thinking about this project. Like, the day I moved in, I knew the windows needed to get done on this house, right? And it's been 6 years that I've been putting it off. I just so happen to think, like, you know what, maybe today enough's enough and I should start maybe taking some action on this. So we're here, we got to strike while the iron's hot. So, I think, again, there might be a little bit more pushback at the beginning from a canvas lead where, well, your guy knocked on the door. No problem. Like, it's your decision still. We just have options. We're super easy to work with, and, everybody's at different stages, and you can choose whatever you like.
I think, hey, again, like anything, the way you talk about it and explain it, and, makes me more and more a believer, I should say. It can be done. It's not either or, it's kind of as well, right? And if it works for you, that's probably the best way to to roll with it. And I think you kind of just highlighted at the end is also, but if there is any resistance, just roll with it. Don't continue to pin it down.
Yeah, I think it's as human beings too, we all have a level of pride, right? And there are going to be a good percentage of people that when we bring this up early, tell us, look, no, because they promised themselves they weren't going to buy something. But too, right? The person that objects too much is the person that's scared of buying something from us, right? They like to buy things. But that level of pride means that they might have a hard time of going back on their word. So giving them the permission to change their mind, and that's an okay thing, I think is critical there too. Like, hey, look, it's totally up to you. If you see something you like and you want to change your mind, that's your right to do so as well.
Yeah, I think no matter what, like you mentioned too, it's the difference between a velvet hammer and a sledgehammer. If you don't say anything prior to putting that price on the table, and then transition to some kind of today only offer or today offer, that's when there is, I don't even know if it's probably pressure as much as it is the customer becoming just frustrated.
Yeah.
It's like changes the whole tone.
Sneaky.
Yeah.
It is. It's sneaky. It's again, kind of what the golden rule, do unto others, right? I wouldn't want that in my house. Like, if you're going to give me options, I want to know what the options are, so that when I'm looking at whatever it is you're offering me, you're talking to me about who you are as a company. You're talking to me about who the installers are and the products are that you're offering, the warranties. If I'm starting to say like, okay, this makes sense, and this is who I would trust with my home and who I would, trust with my family in the home, kind of thing. Okay. Like, does it make sense for my budget as well too?
Yeah. The other day, you and I were on the phone, and this actually is funny because we were literally talking about baseball as well as about our business. But you and then I realized after the fact, I think you had posted, I think you'd done an article on LinkedIn with it. But can you talk a little bit about the swing versus the hit? I think that was an awesome kind of, the way you explained it to me, just, I don't know, really made a lot of sense. And I think that the group, if and when folks do get a chance to jump on and listen, whether it's live or the replay, I think they can benefit from it. You mind talking about it a little bit?
Yes. So in a previous life, I was a hitting coach at University of Mary Washington, and had an opportunity to work with. He's actually now the head coach at GW. You'd love it, Joe. He's got one of the coolest, I think, traditions now in college baseball. He starts every game after the home plate meeting, and he kind of turns around, does a quick hop and sprints to the team and slides into the huddle for the team.
I just saw a post about it. I didn't know that was GW. Yes, it did say GW. You're right. Yeah.
That's shout out to my guy, Greg Ritchie. He's the man. I'm pretty sure that guy could still hit 300 at the D1 level in college. He's one of the best athletes I've ever known. He's learned a lot from that guy for sure about leadership.
I literally I'm like, they're like, watch what this guy does after, taking, obviously doing pregame, rules, whatever we want to call it. I forget what they call it anymore, but yeah. And then he runs down the third base line and they're clapping it up, and he.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's got the team bought in, man. And I forget, I shot him a text because somebody sent it to me. It was like, hey, check this out. And I was like, that's one of my really good friends. I used to basically live with that guy over the winter, him and his family. Awesome. Yeah, he's a good dude. But, one of the things I would work with him over the winter, we would run these clinics for, basically like 8-year-olds all the way through like professional guys were coming back, because he was in the Pittsburgh organization and with the Pirates and then the White Sox as well too for a long time. And, we would focus on, two different things, the swing and then the hit, right? So the swing being very mechanical. So you're working drill work where you're hitting off a tee and, focused on exactly where your foot is or your hands are and repeating things over and over and over and over again, right? And then at a certain point, as you're getting closer to the season, you got to really transition into hit work, right? Rhythm and timing and taking things overhand and making sure that all the drill work that you've done is going to translate into game speed action, right? And then you can go back to drill work, right? You need to at times, but too much drill work can be a detriment to game speed stuff, right? You got to have swing thought stuff in the game. And, there's a lot of parallel between athletics and real life business stuff that we do as well too. And as I'm kind of going through and working with some different people across the country, and you probably run into this as well, we run into some different leaders in our world that are very rigid in the swing aspect of the sales process, right? Well, we have a 7-step process, and like you have to say it exactly this way every single time. Well, I'm a believer in scripts, and I'm a believer in methodologies, and I'm a believer in process. But I've wrote scripts and methodology, but those are my words. Like, I'm the person that wrote it. And like Joe, you and I are very similar, but you say some things a little bit differently. And if I'm going to hire you, like, you have a personality, and you're in a room with Mr. Jones at 2:00, and at 6:00, it's Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson's a little bit different. So I need you to also have hit in your game, right? I need you to have rhythm and timing and be able to kind of work and flow through an appointment. So, and then there's people that are on the other side of the spectrum that believe like, well, everybody's got a personality and we don't believe in scripts and methodology. And that was kind of the idea of the article, is that you got to have a healthy balance of both, right? And if we're too rigid on one side of the fence or the other, you're probably missing the mark. I think that the teams that do it really well have a really good foundation of that, methodology and that scripting work, and know to go back to it and drill it when things are getting off, but also know how to go, okay, cool. How do we think outside the box? How do we call an audible when, the play scripts are getting off, that kind of thing. So, and being able to balance it. So like the things that we've done in meetings, right, where you put a panel in front, right? Hey, take 2 players that are doing really, really well right now and let the team pick their brain about it. And then we're not doing well as a team right now. So, okay, cool. We're going to split up into groups and we're going to role play things, and get back to the script and back to the methodology, and making sure that you are covering both bases on a regular. I think that's really, really critical in our world.
It's a valid point. I had reminded me of we trained a rep, this is years ago, onboarded a rep so hardcore, who then took our discipline around the process to another level. And I think it was his first lead, maybe it was his second lead, I can't remember. I think it was his first lead. It makes sense. We're doing a debrief, and I go, well, how'd it go? How'd you feel? One of those, what went well, what didn't go well, get to the what didn't get well. He's like, well, I called him John and Mary. I said, you got to be kidding me. He said, I'm 100%.
Yeah.
100%. He goes, we're right in the middle of, I think he was like, I'm doing some kind of, just check in with him during the company story, and hit him right with a John and Mary. He goes, guess what? Their names aren't John and Mary. It's like, yeah, you're going to need be a little bit more present. I mean, again, you got to have that starting point. It's like when you are teaching an 8-year-old, on the hitting side, there are some basic fundamentals that, hey, and I actually, if you don't mind, I posted about this on the Sales Manager Alliance yesterday. Yeah. Gosh, we're really talking about baseball, but I get an email actually it was on the phone, email too, came with it, but this guy Kevin, and he goes, hey, son's getting some lessons the other day, and we have a mutual friend who teaches. He's, I don't know, probably got 15 or 20 guys under his belt that are in the bigs, that are pitchers. And, he's like, so his son's doing lessons with him. And the guy basically is saying, hey, look, I don't care, arm slots, leg kicks, all this stuff. However, there's 4 fundamentals that no matter who it is, and no matter what you're trying to train on, these have to happen in every pitch sequence. Like, no matter what, doesn't make a difference. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, and that's why I shared it. I mean, if we can master those, like, you do potato, I do potato, okay. But if those, and again, I don't know if it's 4 for us. Right. I think there's a couple key disciplines that almost have to happen probably on every sit. For a sales leader, same thing. For a weekly cadence, hey, no matter what happens, I have to accomplish these things, 4 or 5, whatever it may be. Another friend of mine talked about it this morning with him, and he's like, hey, dude, 3. What are 3 things you have to do today? that are going to move that needle forward.
Yeah.
So it's, getting too far in the weeds on it, or the other way where it gets too individualized. So I always try to personalize versus individualize, right? Early on, especially, it's like, hey man, I need you. I can't have you go stray too far off of it, because, there is a reason we do it. It's to ramp you up quicker versus having to guess at what to do and or say. So yeah, it's an interesting, that's another, tends to be a hot topic everywhere I go.
It really is.
Right.
I think it's you got to have a repeatable process, because when things aren't going well, you got to be able to go back and break down the game film and go, okay, where am I off, right? And we always used to start every training when we had new people come in, and I would say, look, you have to learn a lot of things here, right? So you're going to have to learn, one, how to walk through a home, right? And, how to introduce yourself, how to introduce our process, how to do an inspection, how to, price a job up, all of these things. But you're also going to have to learn, like, our products, our material, our pricing, our contracts, like our language, all of these other things. So we're going to provide you a script with what to say, because you're going to need to be able to put one part of your brain on autopilot, maybe not too much where you're calling the homeowner the wrong name, like in your story there, right?
Cool.
But this is also like a crutch for you for a small period of time while you're learning all of these other things. And I would always kind of finish that statement with, but if we fast forward in like 8 months and it sounds exactly like this, there could be a problem, because you haven't owned the script, right? Like, you haven't made it your own and like really digested what it is we're trying to get across here. And like, I was always a big believer that, and still am today, that there are really 4 things that we're trying to accomplish through the whole process, or 4 questions we're trying to help answer, which is, and these aren't earth shattering, right? We all know these, but the decision process is centered around, can they continue to live with the situation as it is, or are they going to make a change? Are we a company that they can trust with their home? Is this a product that solves their problems and that they like, and does it reasonably fit into their budget? If at some point during the process you're answering one of those 4 questions, you're probably doing the right stuff, right? That's the right thing. Does it always have to go in a perfect order? No, in fact, sometimes it doesn't. Like, so you need to know the system inside and out so that you can go from A to D and back to B and then C and bounce around. But the only way to do that is to memorize it, front to back and all the way through on day one, right? So that's why we go through a really rigorous training process to make sure that you're fully prepared and the playbook the way that you're supposed to know the playbook. So again, you got to have both. If you find yourself as a leader too rigid on one side or the other, right? I guess too rigid or too loose is probably the right way to say it. You're missing the mark, right?
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on with that. The other thing I was, by the way, I highly recommend anybody that's, if you're on LinkedIn and, look up Matt Fitzgerald. I'll call him Fitz 100 times here today, but I'm sure if you just search Matt Fitzgerald, you'll see his face pop up. But I highly recommend you follow or like. I don't know what you do on LinkedIn, but follow. You have some of the things that you post. I just love it. One of the things I wanted to bring up was the difference. You talk about it. The difference between good sales teams and great ones. I think that's important. Obviously you shared some of it on here, but I'd rather talk about it if you don't mind.
Sure.
And get your take on that, because that's common too. The other side of it can be subjective, right?
Yeah.
There isn't, no team closes 100%. You know what? Let's back up. I guess the difference, yes, but also, what do you think? How do you know? And I posted this. How do you know? A question the other day. How do you know if your team is any good?
Yeah.
Right.
I think that one of my favorite parts about this industry is the community that it is, right? I've worked in a couple of other industries, in the short amount of time I've been in sales, I guess comparatively maybe to some of the some of those that are out there. But in other industries, there's not a lot of sharing that happens the way that it happens here, right? And the idea that you could literally pick up the phone and introduce yourself to a stranger and within 20 minutes have a new best friend, basically, right? It is really, really cool. So I think that that's probably the first place to really know whether or not you are good or not, is talking to somebody else. Now, I'll also put it out that going back to our friend Bob and I were sitting at a conference one time after it had just wrapped up, and made the comment to each other, do you ever feel like you really suck at your job? And it was like, yeah, especially after these things, because you leave and everybody's talking about all these things that you do, and you're looking at this list of 27 things on here going like, I got to implement, like, I don't do any of these things. It's like, well, I do a lot of really good things too, right? So, but that would be my first place, is pick up the phone and call somebody, right? And just compare notes, right? And is what we're doing up to the standard that they're seeing out there or not, right? And you have to be honest too, right? Like, I think that's the other thing, is what I'm measuring the right stuff to measure, and is it being measured the same way that other people are measuring it out there? Because I think we hear that all the time, like, I'm closing 80%. It's like, oh, okay, well, how do you measure your close rate? Well, I don't count things that don't count. It's like, oh, cool, okay, right,
That's so true. Gosh.
Yeah. So that would be my first place, I think is, from an X's and O standpoint, or the KPIs, just, pick up the phone and ask how other people are doing, and people are willing to share. It's cool. And where you're deficient, ask what they're doing, and people will share. And it's really cool. The other thing too is, like, ask to go visit and sit in the room and hear how the conversations are going. Because a lot of it is around culture. We had a former rep of mine from my days at Renewal by Anderson, and that was, I think, if not the best, it was definitely one of the best sales teams I've ever been a part of. And I was a manager on that team. I learned way more from those guys than they probably learned, not probably, way more from them than they learned from me. Yeah. And the thing that was really good about those guys, there was an attitude of nobody is allowed to be below the standard. So the second they saw somebody struggling, I never had to step in and do any coaching. There was somebody grabbing them after a meeting and going, hey, I got a 2:00, you're coming with me. And they were quick to pick each other up. Right. So I think that's culture, and that culture is driven obviously from the top down. That's stuff we all talk about on a regular basis, but it's owned by the team. Right. And when you start to see that stuff, that's where you start to realize, okay, we got something good going on, and nobody's going to be left behind here. And that's where the team really starts to take off.
Yeah, I had to follow one of your other posts just now and shift to pausing, right? Not answering right away or not cutting you off, because you're bringing up some very, very, important reminders. And I'm going to start with one more for young owners or leaders, right? That go to these conferences and watch certain people on stage. I'm not calling out names. And this is what concerns me, though, is people get discouraged, because you're right. I remember we had that talk. By the way, for however long I've known you, 4 or 5 years now, we have that text thread between me, you, and Bob. Yeah. And there's a couple things about it. There's honesty and trust, right? We don't fluff numbers. What should I care if you two think I'm good or bad, right? Like, that's not the point, and it doesn't benefit anybody. But back to the conference.
We're gonna tell you anyway.
For sure. For sure, right? So I think, but having that somebody, like you said, pick up the phone, or have a core group that you can, be honest with, right, yourself, and say, hey, I suck, and I don't. That's something I've appreciated about you two, especially, right? There's no ego, man. It just doesn't benefit anybody. But back to this conference concept, man, it aggravates me. It aggravates me because of the negativity, or the negative perception somebody may have about where they are in their business. And twofold. One is because you don't see a lot of people getting up on stage going, here's where I suck.
Yeah.
right? Which I think maybe we'll do a conference. You and I will host it one day, and it's just going to be like, look, I don't want to hear about how great you are now. I want to hear about how you're failing or how you failed in the past and what you learned from it. You know, the idea of success leave clues. Sure, failures leave better ones.
Yeah.
You know, but there's also this little, and this is going to maybe, I don't care, piss some people off. Oh, well, there's a lot of people on those stages that say a lot of things that aren't true.
100%.
That just aren't true, where you're like, really?
Yeah.
Your culture's, you know, world class? I kind of know a bunch of people that left there, worked there, you know, whatever, right? And I mean, I get it. I understand, but, you know, so, but when it becomes negative to somebody else or perceived as, oh man, I might as well just take a long drive off a short bridge. We're never going to make it. That's unfortunate. That's my first point there. And then the other, which we kind of talked about, is finding those people that you trust. And then I'll take it to the third one, is the best way. And we see this with somebody. It's amazing how I almost bring them up in every conversation. Goes to show probably, you know, adds credit to him. Brian Gottlieb will just say, hey man, come out and I'll show you the numbers.
Yeah.
I'll open, you know, I'll open up everything I can that I'm allowed to show, you know what I mean? Like, depending if it was renewal back in the day type thing, right? But like Tungerland back in the day, it's how we met.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, we do 20% to the, you know, to the bottom number. It was like, hold on. He didn't even say it. He just starts showing, for KPI purposes, we're looking at something. And of course my eyes go to, I'm like, is that really net? And he's like, yeah. And of course, then he's like, oh, great lesson. Do well and do good. Right? When you do it the right way and with the right people, you've earned that right to have that at the bottom line. So I think you're right, man, around that. KPIs especially, we can't even agree on those.
No, everybody measures it. You know, it's you know, I'll touch on BG there for a second too. You know, I had the opportunity with my owner not too long ago when we were in our kind of growth, you know, trajectory, and he, same thing. Okay, come on out. I'll you know, open the books and show you, you know, how to build and do what you need to do. And you know, obviously, so many people have had that open door policy with him, and I still am a nobody, but you know, I can't thank him enough for that opportunity. And he's been very helpful and great, you know, to me and gracious in that regard. So just an awesome individual. But you know, the KPI thing, I'm always amazed at how many people like fluff the number to like make themselves feel good. And I don't know, maybe it's the baseball in us that failure is an okay thing. Like it's part of growth, like you mentioned earlier. And if you're not failing, you're not trying, right? And the weird thing that some of us have set up this idea that we got to protect that ego because it's so fragile that we're gonna, you know, cause us to go backwards is just I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. To your point, like in some of those text groups that we have and some of the conversations we have, I would rather be surrounded by people who are comfortable pointing out to me where I'm deficient and how to get better than the other people that are quick to pat me on the back and tell me the sun is out when it's raining.
Right. I mean, it just doesn't. It doesn't. The most common thing it comes up. Sorry, I dropped that. It comes up probably at some point. First thing that I do when I work with a company is we do talk numbers, because I got to know where we are versus where we're going, scoreboard wise. And but I kind of do it now because I want to know, how do you guys declare, you know, or what do you determine as an issued lead? And this, boy, or let's just say in terms of your closing percentage, is that against what? And it reminds me back to baseball. I'm trying to think. A walk is an at bat, but doesn't, like, you're 0 for 1 with a walk, right? I wasn't a hitter. I was a pitcher and shitty at bat. But
that's the only area you and I are in. Just I was a catcher, so, you know, as my dad said, I had a face that belonged behind a mask. He's
or
sweet man.
hit. Maybe it's hit by pitch. But one of them,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I'm 0 for 1 with this. It's like, hold on,
Yeah.
but I'm 0 for 1.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. You get a plate appearance, right? Yeah, it's a plate appearance, right? I think
plate
in
appearance,
in the walk, right? And it's look, I get it from a sales rep's perspective. You know, I understand like the pushback on it. I'm a sales rep at heart. I always will be, right? But at the end of the day, from a owner's perspective, from a marketer's perspective, I paid for the lead, right? Just like in the pitcher's perspective, they still threw pitches to you in that, in that analogy. So like, it's still something happened there, right? So yeah, I think you and I are in agreement on this. Like, I gave you a name and an address and a time to be there. A good friend of mine, he runs a company now in the DC area, like the one day door business, Bill Acton. I used to love listening to him. So he was a rep with me at Renewal by Anderson, and then ended up being a manager with me as well too. And he was hysterical. He's a Marine sniper. When guys would call, with the long story about what happened on the appointment, he would go, "Oh, hold on, just one question: did you or didn't you sell it?" Right? And they'd be like, "Well, but yes or no, did you sell it or no?" And they would go, "No." Cool, 0 for 1, on to the next one. Right? Kind of thing. Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day is, did we sell it or did we not? Do you want to talk about what we could do differently to sell it or not? Then that's the other part of the conversation we need to have, because we can't change anything else about it. So I think one of the things that I was talking about with somebody else the other day, that I don't know how to do this. I would love to be able to figure this out from a sales rep perspective. If we could find a way to hire sales reps and have them do like a mandatory 6 months in leadership, like to get a peek behind the curtain, and all the stuff that, and again, I'm as guilty of it as anybody, but all the things that we complained about and like we're worried about in our sales career, if they got a chance to like be in leadership and get that peek behind the curtain and go, oh, like all that stuff that I was worried about, like really doesn't matter. Like, nobody's really out to get me. They didn't like send me on this lead because somebody hates me or is like frustrated. Like, oh, okay, like that's not that big of a deal. I could just let go of all that baggage. Like, that peek behind the curtain would be worth its weight in gold. I don't know how that would work, but if we could find a way to make that work, it would be really cool.
Well, you brought up, hey, from a marketing, from an owner, from a, perspective, I'll give it to you from a rep perspective. You just drove to that lead. If you want me to just ignore it or remove it from your numbers, and ultimately that'll, like, what benefit is that to you? If you run your appointments like it's your own business within this business, you want to track that. You spent the fuel, you spent the time, right? If we want to just have it disappear, like, you should want to know, like, hey, I know that everybody else knows that I wasn't able to get into these 4 homes completely out of my control, whatever the number is, right?
Right.
Because it's not a foregone. You did spend your own money on fuel, time, all that stuff. Plus, the other side of it is, as long as the playing field is equal, it flushes itself out.
Yeah.
Right. I don't count your no shows against you, but against me, another rep, I count. Like, it doesn't. Right. We're all playing on the same playing field.
Right. Unless I don't like you, then I'm going to count them twice.
That's another common one. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but boy, if it does, sales manager, I'll just say it. You're stupid. Why would you ever put favoritism above data if your income is tied to it? I know it happens, so I don't ignore it for reps that say it, but good night. To not use a batting order and just be like, I like Johnny better than I like Fitzy, but Johnny knows how to put pen to paper, and I should probably be working with Fitzy. Like, whatever. I coached college baseball for a while, and then I went and coached with my old high school coach for a little while, and it was a hard transition because you talk to college kids a little different than you talk to high school kids, and you got to deal with the parents a little bit more. And my first year there was I had a conversation that we had to get called in with the administrators, and we had a good administrator, but there was, well, my son's not playing because they don't like him. And that was the comment. And I said, well, hold on, wait a second. Just to be clear,
it's got nothing to do with like or not. Like if the devil was on our team and could bat 400, he'd be hitting fourth. Just for the, I'm not going for beers with the devil afterward, but he's going to hit fourth, right? Afterward, the administrator was like, "Hey, I appreciate the sentiment. You can't really say that, in those meetings, but kind of thing." But I'm like, I got to win baseball games, or we don't get to keep our job. Like that's the way this works, right? So I'm with you. It does happen, especially as these smaller organizations. Like, well, Bill's been with us for 15 years, and it's like, yeah, but Bill can't sell shit right now, and Johnny's been here 6 months and is selling everything you give him. What's the better return, right? Like, it makes no sense to me when people aren't using a batting order.
100%. By the way, I'd tell that parent, you're right. I don't like your son. However, that doesn't determine his playing time. You know what I mean? Like,
not even a little bit.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I actually would like him, maybe not like him as bad if he could hit a baseball, but, or sell something, close the door, do something.
Be helpful.
Yeah. That's, and again, I know it does exist. I don't ignore it. And that's a good point. I don't lose empathy for the sales rep, but the minute that empathy turns into inaction or lack of execution, that's a problem for me. And it should 100%. Be a problem for whoever you're coaching. It's like, hey man, you may hate me for a day because I'm telling you the harsh truth, or you can, hate me forever for just letting it slide and having you fail.
Absolutely. Look, as a leader, manager, right, of a team, the last team I took over, the company had been in business for 50 years, right? And the reps that were there had been on average there for 15 years, right? That's unheard of. And I told the owner, I said, look, there are going to be things that we need to do differently in order to grow. And you're going to have probably at some point, all of these guys that have been with you for that long are going to come to you at different spots and say, this guy sucks. I hate him. He's got to go. And he was like, no, they won't do that. I was like, mark my words, they're going to do that. And he came into my office when the last one sent him a text saying that. I was like, you were right. This is the last one. They've all done it. But I started the conversation with all of them. And I said, look, guys, the reality of it is that, you've done a lot of things really well. You've been in business for 50 years. That's no small feat, right? But in order to get where you want to go, we're going to have to do some things a little bit different. We're going to have to pair those things with the things you've done really well. My job is to help implement some things that are going to help us get there. My promise and commitment to you guys is that we're going to make some decisions that are going to help that. And at the core of that will always be a really vital thing. I won't ever make a decision unless I believe it's going to have a neutral or positive impact on your income. That said, you're not always going to like every one of those decisions. My job isn't to do that. But I promise you that at the core, that will be one of the things I consider when I make those decisions, is that it's going to be with your best interest at heart. I promise you that. But you're not always going to like it. I'll make sure you understand it, but you don't have to like it. And again, I made that mistake early when I first got into management. I was going to be the manager that sales reps loved. Like I was going to be the manager's rep. I think we all probably were guilty of that when we first got into it. Like I wasn't going to stand on a table and a lead is a lead, right? The CEOs and vice presidents hadn't run a lead in years, if they ever had, and they didn't know what we went through. And so all the things we told ourselves, I'm sure, but there's a reason you have to toe the line and do those things, because we got to keep sales reps' heads on straight, and hey, you got to keep pressing, and I can't let that head trash get in there, and because it's a numbers game at a certain point too. But again, they don't have to like everything I'm doing, but I do have to make good decisions for the group to keep us going forward. And again, if I keep those things in mind, that it's in their best interest and it's going to make sure that it provides them the opportunity to provide for their family, then we're doing the right stuff. And again, they're not going to like everything, but as long as they understand it, if we explain it clearly and we give them the good why, that's your job, not that they like it.
That's the key. I'm glad you kind of buttoned up on that again, is they understand it. And I was guilty of this. It was almost like the old parenting style of because I said so, where it's like, hey, look, and sometimes I think there's a difference with reps today between you're asking why to better understand, or you're asking why because you're trying to challenge it. You have to recognize the difference. because there is some of that out there too.
For sure.
But if I understand why, again, I may not have to agree with it right now, but that's definitely a missing link there, especially if you're trying to change or drive behavior and not have the resistance. The other, there was something else in there that you mentioned that I was kind of latched on, but I think that understanding is critical. And you're right, giving a peek behind the curtain. We don't do that enough, I think, with, historically, with even like through onboarding, just explaining how the whole business works. You don't have to pull out P&Ls, but like, hey guys, let's understand how we originate a lead.
Yeah.
And what goes into that. One of the best onboardings I ever had, I'll never forget, it was probably day one. Maybe it waited till day two when we got to it, but here comes the chief marketing officer for 30 minutes to explain what they do.
Yeah.
Before the lead comes to us. Oh, I know what I was going to say. The lead is a lead is a lead.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm lying if I say that's true, if you will. But if I have a thought any different, or I don't treat that lead neutral, meaning it just doesn't benefit me. So
Right.
yes, to me as a rep, a lead is a lead is a lead. I have to run it.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, maybe you don't. I don't know what kind of that's a whole nother problem within business if you can turn it down. But you know what I mean? It's like I have to go do it. If I don't have a mentality or a belief around anything that doesn't align with what I'm trying to achieve, like it doesn't benefit me.
Absolutely. I'll give you a story. When I was first in management and I had the opportunity to go run with one of my guys. His name was Yetta, one of the best reps I've ever been around. And he was just happy-go-lucky all the time. Like his mentality was great. And again, as a manager, you're a human being too. So you go on some of these, ride-alongs and you walk into a situation and in the back of your head, you go, kind of thing. Like, some of us are better at hiding that than others. And at this stage of my career, I was not good at hiding it. And this was an area in DC where not the best of neighborhoods, right? And we show up and he looks at me and says, "Oh, good, you're here to watch the cars," right? And I was like, "No, I'm here to go and ride along with you," right? And we go into the house and the house was so full of stuff that I couldn't even sit in the room with them in the presentation. I had to sit on boxes and like peek around the corner and like try to listen. Long story short, I think that the windows he quoted were more than the total annual income that they told us they had, right? And when we went out to get the bag, I made the comment, and it was not a good comment to him, that like, this is going to be hard. And Yetta's phrase all the time was, "You never know," right? And he would say this on a regular basis. And we had gone back into the house. I sat back on my dirty boxes in the corner of the other room, and he just kept going through his process. And you never know was kind of the attitude he had. And he goes through it and presents a price, and they go, "Yeah, let's go ahead and do it." And then they go through financing. And again, the income is less than what we're asking for the window. And I don't know how, but they got approved for financing. And we walk out and he looks at me and goes, "You never know, right? That's why we do what we do." And I went, "Again, you taught me something that I couldn't teach you," right? And that happened 2 or 3 times with him over the course of my time, being his leader. And it's just one of those things that you can't make money sitting on the couch. So you could have quick pitched that. We could have gotten out of there before the sun went down because we didn't want the cars to get broken into or whatever. But he wouldn't have had, at that point, probably $1,500 in his pocket in commission. And I can tell you, 9 out of 10 guys would have done that, right? For sure. And if I'm being honest, I probably would have done that.
Yeah, gosh, it's I recommend reps all the time. If you run that appointment, something similar, and you take that approach, obviously you never know, and you walk out with a sale, take a picture of that home and duct tape it to your dashboard as a reminder right before you get out of the next one that's going to be like that, right? It's, we all have those thoughts, especially in the east side of DC. whether it's north or south, doesn't make a difference these days. But it's obviously don't put your safety in jeopardy. I don't want to say that, but that is funny that he said, "Are you here to watch the cars?" But it's who am I to judge? At the end of the day, and my job's to deliver a presentation first and foremost, and let the cards fall where they fall. Which again, that brings up a different point. I'm not the bank. I don't know anything really about that. That's not my world. That's I'm here just to give you a presentation and facilitate a decision. And it may be a no, and maybe I truly don't have two pennies to rub together. Sure. I don't know. I just felt, and I can't say some morally perfect person, but I felt a lot better about myself each night if I gave, especially that particular customer, my best, versus the ones who actually don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
That we end up trying to give our best or do something that, above and beyond for. So
it's just a matter of treating them like a human being. That's it. Right. And I think that was a key for them was, I think that they're going to buy from somebody. They have a need, right? That's why they're going through this process. Again, I know we have reps that get emotional about like the one party thing. Right. And unfortunately, I'm a believer that that's likely going to be something that increases in our world over the next several years. Time is not getting easier for people, right? I know you got a young kid at home like I do, right? And people have to divide and conquer, right? I got Little League practice tonight, so only one of us can be home. And if this happened to be the night that the other one was available, that's how we would have to run that appointment, right? But I wouldn't be singling out a company to do it that way. That's just how our life would work, right? So that's how we would buy from somebody. So, but as a rep, it would be, again, I understand the emotion behind it. But again, if I walked in and treated that person like a human being and gave them, the courtesy of, the information and answering their questions, do I have a shot at earning their business? Yes, I do, but only because I treated them the right way, right? And I think that's, again, the lesson I learned from Yetta that day was that he just treated them like a human being, and probably somebody else showed up and didn't, right? And that's probably why they bought, not because of like the specs of the window or the fact that it was renewal by Anderson or any of those other reasons. It was just that he was there for them. That was it.
Yeah. No, that's a big one. And I think especially as we go, whatever you want to call it, I guess post-pandemic, people are back in an office, right? Historically, I'm probably away 30 plus weeks a year at some point. Like nothing would get done in my personal home. But I also think the American household dynamics changed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, we know it has. I mean, both parties working more than ever, right? I don't walking away from that, or again, I guess is there a built-in potential objection? Yes, but I think the other objection of shortcutting the appointment because of it is probably the primary objection before ever otherwise, why don't they just call you back? Again, we used to give one company, we used to give 3 days, and I joked with the guys for the most part. And one of the top reps kind of validated it, was like, you give them 300 days. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, like they're never called. It's not, it doesn't make a difference because we didn't do what we were, that we didn't meet the prerequisite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but to not run them, especially when you're short for leads. And again, it's not like we don't, on the front end, we're not trying to get them there. And we see this a lot where we live because we also have a strong military, part of our population here in the Washington, D.C. area. Obviously, I know you're further a little south. You got away from it. You were smart. But, I mean, I don't know, man. That's an inevitable thing. And plus, obviously, people are smart to it these days. So I think it's also understanding why it's a one leg once you're in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I think, the other part of it too is, so when, again, maybe good advice for managers out there, when we were struggling and close rates started to dip, I always looked at two numbers first, right? And for me, they were always really good leading indicators, or at least good levers to start pulling on to try to get the numbers back on track, right? It was demo rate and finance utilization rate. It's wild for me how those numbers always seem to correlate with the close rate dip, right? Most people look at me and say, well, demo rate, that's a marketing problem. It can be, right? They might share some of those numbers, and we might have to go in and do some coaching with our call center and where our marketing's going and how it's going out, that kind of thing. But if it's, let's say 5 points off, what I know for certain is that our sales team probably is responsible for 2.5 or 3 points of that, because they're frustrated and they're throwing things away, right? So I got to get their head screwed back on right. And like the one party is not getting demoed the right way. And one of the things that's important about that is, to your point, it might be a built-in objection. It might be more difficult to close, but I'm not necessarily worried about whether or not we sell that job that you go out and demo. What I know is that if you quick pitch it, you throw a number at them, you don't pitch it, you're now in and out of that appointment in 5 minutes, and you're sitting for hours before the 2 o'clock appointment you have this afternoon, which might be quote unquote a better opportunity, right? And you're getting rusty. You're eating the McDonald's burger and you're getting tired and lethargic, and you don't have the same energy level going into that appointment. You missed the opportunity to practice your presentation and get better and sharper and ready to go for the next appointment. So that's the value of like demoing and pushing through maybe a more difficult situation, so that when there are like laydowns, but a laydown is earned, but it's earned through like what you do beforehand, not just in that appointment. And if you miss that opportunity there, that's a big deal. So that's why, again, like when we looked at those numbers, it was wild. Teaching that to my managers that work for me, it was awesome when they came back in. They're like, man, we worked on just like, how do we get more demos off today? And look at the numbers over the next couple of days. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, yeah, we just got to go demo. Just go, go do your job. It's wild how that works, right?
It's there's a lot of value what you just mentioned there. At the end of the day, the practice makes permanent, not perfect. It makes it permanent. Mm-hmm. So that guy who shortcuts, sometimes you get a string of them, right? Because also whatever you bring about what you think about. So next thing you know, they come in threes, and now you shortcutted 3, and then 6 p.m. comes, and it's a home run. It's John and Mary, 123 Main Street, credit card in hand. Maybe Mary even has a nice glass of iced tea waiting for you, and you lay an egg.
Yep. Yeah.
There's something to be said for that. I think there's a timing thing. You talked about it with skill and the hit, or I'm sorry, with the swing and the hit. There is a timing thing, and you're not in, you're off a little bit on that lead that you really need to be on with. And plus there's all the trouble outside. I used to get myself in more trouble when I wasn't in the home, right? Find things to get into, eat dog crap. You actually, I want to we can end on it, but you talked about this on one of your posts, and this is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think this is where we execute to a standard, not so much a result. Or I think you were talking about standards versus skill, and so you can chime in on that if you don't mind, but it's execute to a standard regardless. And here are those standards versus the outcome or the perceived outcome we're going for. But yours was more, again, standard skill. Talk about that real quick before I've taken up a ton of your time. So I just want to, I do want to end on it because I love it, what you talk about here.
Good. So, I mean, I'm a big believer in standards, right? And making sure, again, in an organization, communicating what the standards are on a regular basis. The day somebody comes in, it should be one of the first things we do, right? Here are what our standards are. Standard operating procedures, but also like what the standards are for what good looks like, what great looks like. We're going to teach you how to get to good and how, to get from good to great. And then we're also going to make sure that you have access to know where you are in comparison to the standard at all times, right? Yep. For those that are maybe new to that sounds like it can be harsh or micromanagey, kind of thing. But I can tell you from experience that when people know the standards very clearly and they know where they are in comparison to that, they have a very clear picture. And the cultures that I've been a part of with that, it's really, really awesome because everybody is pushing really hard to get there. They're picking people up when they fall behind. you remember I did my leaderboard and color coded it, right? Like green, yellow, and red, so that people knew where they were with the standards. My reps used to refer to themselves as yellow reps or green reps or red. It was weird. We're all adults, but we like stickers still, basically, right?
True.
You know, professionally, I think it works, but I mean, from a personal standpoint, it works as well too, right? Like you got to have personal standards, and like I believe, like I'm a professional sales rep, right? So that's my job. My job is to go give a professional presentation and represent my organization in a professional manner. If I'm cutting corners or I'm quick pitching things, then I'm leaving a bad taste in this customer's mouth, and they're going to go talk to their neighbors. They're going to talk to their brother, their sister, and that's ruining it for, Joe, if you and I are on the same team and you're going into that neighbor's house the next week, I'm not setting you up for success either. So,
great point.
It bleeds throughout everything else. I mean, again, in my personal life, I got a 7-year-old son. We have a standard we start the day with every day. Before he leaves the house, he has to tell his mom, hug and kiss for mom every day. And then before he walks out the door, it's, hey, mom, kick today's butt, right? And she says it back to him. And then he gives me a fist pound before he gets on the bus, and it's kick today's butt day, because we're going to own the day and not the day own us, right? And it's a little thing, right? It's the mindset. Like you have the choice over the outcome of the day, not the other way around.
Dude, we don't need to say any more. I'll say the last thing, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Matt, sales and leadership coach, also and the co-host of the Fitz Franson Show. I'm sure that's on all platforms.
Yes, sir.
Which is, you guys cover all of it, but probably, I don't want to misspeak, but tailored to around our industry in some form or fashion, home improvement, home services. Where is the best way? Is it LinkedIn? I know you're a member of In-Home Sales Pros. Appreciate you being in the group. Can they direct message you through Facebook? What's the best way typically?
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn's great, and Matt Fitzgerald on LinkedIn, or on the group, which I love being a part of. There's always some great sharing there, which is another way. And then if you want to check us out on the Fitz Franson Show, you can do that as well too. There's an email for that there, and that's on any of the platforms. So any of those things, you can find me on any of that stuff. That happy to connect and answer any questions anybody has, or help in any way we can.
Fitz, love it, man. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody that obviously we do these live. Just don't have the ability right now, time and a bunch of other things. So, I know a lot of people maybe not able to jump on live, wait till it gets shared out. I know Facebook that frowns upon YouTube, but there is a Windshield Time YouTube page that all these are live through. And we'll make sure we share. Matt, I'll attach you to it as well. And I can't thank you enough more, for your time first and foremost,
Absolutely.
but also obviously the nuggets you shared with everybody today after, gosh, what you say, 20 plus years in this industry now?
It's coming up on, so I'm old, but I'm not quite that old yet, bro.
My bad.
All good, man.
That's right.
All good.
I love it. Hey, man, again, everybody appreciate it. Make sure you pass on, engage with us. Can't thank you enough. Have a good day. And I think we're actually back here again tomorrow, believe it or not. Thanks again, Matt.
I appreciate it, bro. Thanks for the invite.
Yep.
See ya.